Hey Jason, here from Simply Swider. If your Kenmore freezer isn't freezing and your ice cream's turning into soup, don't panic. I'm going to show you exactly how to diagnose and fix this problem in the next 15 minutes. Here's the good news. 80% of the time, it's not an expensive compressor failure like most people think. Instead, it's usually a simple $15 to $150 fix that you can handle yourself. Before we get started, if you run into any questions, jump into our Facebook group. Links in the description. We've got thousands of people helping each other fix their appliances, and I pop in there daily to help out. All right, so here's what's actually happening behind the scenes. Most folks think their freezer's out of Freon or the compressor's dead because they hear humming sounds or clicking noises. But here's the thing, that's usually not the case at all. The real culprits are airflow problems, defrost system failures, or simple electrical issues. We'll diagnose these problems in order of likelihood, starting with the most common causes first. Here's our game plan. Step 1. Check airflow problems like fan motors, which cause 40% of these issues. Step 2, examine the defrost system for ice buildup. Step 3, test simple electrical components like start relays. Step 4, only then do we consider expensive sealed system problems like compressor failure, which actually happens less than 10% of the time. So the number one culprit here is that evaporator fan motor. This little guy is responsible for moving cold air around inside your freezer. Here's what happens. The motor bearings wear out from running constantly, or ice buildup physically blocks those fan blades. You'll know this is the problem when your compressor's humming away and getting hot, but it's dead silent inside the freezer compartment. Your ice cream's soft, but if you feel the back wall, it's actually cold. The cold air just isn't moving around. Here's your 30-second diagnostic test. First, open the freezer door and locate the door switch. It's usually a small button or lever. Press and hold it while listening carefully. You should hear a fan motor running inside. If it's silent, that's a red flag. Next, locate the fan blades inside the freezer compartment and try spinning them gently by hand. They should move freely with just a slight resistance. If they're stuck or grinding, those motor bearings have failed. Don't ask me how I know that, but I've seen this probably 100 times. The fix is straightforward. Replace that motor. You're looking at about 50 to 150 bucks for the part, way cheaper than calling someone like me. Now, here's where most people mess up. They replace the thermostat because the freezer feels warm, completely ignoring that the cold air isn't circulating. Another common cause is your defrost system going haywire. This system's supposed to melt frost off those evaporator coils, but when it fails, ice builds up until it blocks all the airflow. You've got three components that can fail here: the defrost thermostat, the heater element, or the timer. The thermostat's a bimetal switch that tells the heater when to turn on. When it stays open, no heating happens. The heater element can burn out just like a light bulb, and that mechanical timer can get stuck in cooling mode and never advance to defrost. You'll spot this problem by that thick layer of frost or snow on the back panel of your freezer. Here's how to test each component. For the defrost thermostat, you'll need a multimeter set to continuity mode. Test it while it's cold. You should get a continuous beep or zero resistance reading when it's below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. For the timer, locate the manual advance dial and slowly turn it clockwise with a flathead screwdriver. Listen for the compressor to shut off and feel for the defrost heater warming up on the back panel. If turning the dial manually works, but your freezer never defrosts automatically, the timer motor has failed. I had this lady last month who kept using a hair dryer to defrost her freezer manually. It would work for 3 to 5 days, then the ice would come right back. That's the classic sign of a defrost system failure. The manual defrost is just a temporary band-aid. Here's something that trips up a lot of folks, that clicking sound coming from the back of your freezer. Most people think the compressor's dead, but it's usually just a cheap start relay that's failed. This little electrical device gives your compressor the boost it needs to start up. Inside there's a ceramic disc that shatters from heat or electrical surges. When it fails, you get that distinct click, buzz, click sound every few minutes. The compressor tries to start but can't, so it gets warm but never actually runs. Here's the easiest test in the world. Unplug your freezer, pull that relay off the compressor, and shake it near your ear. If it rattles like a maraca, that ceramic disc is broken and you need a new relay. These things cost 15 to 60 bucks, way better than replacing a compressor. I remember this guy who called me convinced his compressor was shot. Turned out to be a $20 relay. Don't ask me how many times I've seen that one. Now, here's a maintenance issue that'll kill your compressor if you ignore it long enough. Those condenser coils, usually at the bottom or back of your unit, get coated with dust and pet hair. When they're dirty, your freezer can't release heat properly, so the compressor runs constantly trying to keep up. You'll notice the cabinet feels hot to the touch and that compressor just never cycles off. This one's easy to spot. Just look at those coils.
Up as
If
much
they're
dust
covered
as
in
you
dust
can.
bunnies and pet hair, that's your problem. The
Then
fix
use
is
the coil
simple:
cleaning
vacuum
brush
them
and
out
run it
and
in
use a
between the
coil brush.
coils.
This is always a DIY job, never needs a service call. But here's where people go wrong. They replace the thermostat because the unit runs nonstop when all they needed to do was clean those coils. If you've got pets, this should be on your regular maintenance schedule. All right, so this one's specific to certain Kenmore models, but it's a big deal. If you got a Kenmore Elite unit, you can see these model prefixes on the screen right now. You might be dealing with a linear compressor failure. These LG manufactured units from about 2014 to 2020 have a notorious failure rate with their linear compressors. Here's what's tricky: the compressor runs, the fans run, no clicking sounds, but you get zero cooling. The internal discharge valves fail or the piston wears out, so it's mechanically broken even though it's electrically running fine. This one requires amp draw testing and sealed
ஆர்ம்ஸ்
system pressure
200ங்கிறதுல
checks.
வச்சுக்கிட்டு
Definitely
இதை
professional
வந்து இந்த
territory. The
பிளாக்
good
கலர்
news is many of
இந்த
these
பிளாக் கலர்
failures are
ஒயரில்
covered
இப்படி
under
மாட்டி
extended
விட்டுறணும். மாட்டி
warranties
விட்டதுக்கப்புறம் ப்ளக்கை
or
ஆன் பண்ணுற
class
பாருங்க.
action settlements because it's a known defect. If you've got one of these units and it fits this pattern, don't start throwing parts at it. Call a pro who can do the proper testing. The least common cause is that cold control thermostat, the mechanical switch that tells your compressor when to turn on and off. When this fails, usually the contacts inside get pitted or stuck, and the whole unit goes completely silent. No compressor, no fans, but the lights still work. Sometimes you can tap the knob housing and temporarily get it to start. That's percussive maintenance for you. To test this, you can bypass the thermostat with a jumper wire to see if everything else fires up. These run about 30 to 80 bucks to replace. But here's the thing: people often assume this is the problem when their unit won't cool. But if the compressor and fans are running, the thermostat's doing its job. The real problem's somewhere else in the system. The start relay, this is your cheapest and easiest fix. You're looking at 15 to 60 bucks for the part, and it's about as straightforward as it gets. Just unplug the unit, pull the old relay off, and plug the new one on. Takes maybe 5 minutes. Now, if your relay is not available, you can often use a universal 3-in-1 hard start kit, especially on older chest freezers. Important safety warning: never use universal hard start kits on freezers manufactured after 2010, especially models with digital displays or linear compressors. These kits can send voltage spikes that will permanently damage expensive electronic control boards, turning a $20 relay problem into a $300 control board replacement. If your freezer has a digital temperature display or is a Kenmore Elite model, stick with the exact OEM replacement relay only. The evaporator fan motor is going to run you about 50 to 150 bucks. This one's a medium difficulty repair. You'll need to remove that back panel inside the freezer and disconnect the electrical harness. If you're comfortable with a nut driver and can handle basic wiring, it's definitely doable. But if those electrical connections look complex or hardwired, might be time to call in some help. The motor itself isn't repairable. Once those bearings seize up or the windings fail, you're replacing the whole thing. For defrost system parts, you're looking at 10 to 40 bucks for a thermostat, 20 to 50 for a timer, and maybe 50 to 100 for a heater element. The thermostat and timer are usually pretty easy swaps if you can access the evaporator area and you've got a basic multimeter. But if your defrost control is integrated into a main electronic control board, that's getting into service call territory. Those boards can run you 100 to 300 bucks and the wiring gets pretty complex. Now, the linear compressor, this is the big kahuna. You're looking at $600 to $1,200, and that's mostly labor costs. This is absolutely professional only work, requires EPA certification, brazing equipment, and sealed system expertise. Don't be a hero on this one. The good news is, if you've got one of those problematic elite models, the parts are often warranted even if your original warranty is expired. But the labor, that's still going to cost you. At these prices, you're often better off replacing the whole freezer unless it's a really nice unit or you've got warranty coverage. All right, let's talk about what you're looking at cost-wise for these repairs. I'm going to break down the most common parts, what they typically cost, and whether this is something you can tackle yourself or if you need to call someone like me. Here's the thing about Kenmore. They source from different manufacturers, so the parts and difficulty can vary quite a bit depending on what you've got. Now, before we wrap up, you can see right there on your screen the most common Kenmore models that run into these problems. Maybe you'll spot your own model up there. The Elite series with those 795 prefixes are the ones with the linear compressor issues. The 253 models sourced from Frigidaire tend to have start relay and control problems. The 106 series from Whirlpool are actually pretty reliable, usually just relay failures. And those older 183 chest freezers often need relays that aren't available anymore, so you end up using universal kits. Here's your quick troubleshooting checklist. Step 1. Test the evaporator fan by pressing the door switch and listening for fan noise. Step 2. Check for ice buildup on the back panel that blocks airflow. Step 3. If you hear clicking every few minutes, test the start relay by shaking it for rattling sounds. Step 4. Clean those condenser coils if the freezer runs constantly. Remember, 90% of freezer problems are these simple fixes, not expensive compressor replacements. Start with the $20 solutions before assuming you need the $500 repairs. And those elite models with linear compressors, that's professional territory but might be covered under warranty. Try these fixes in order of probability. Most of the time, it's going to be that fan motor or defrost system. If you guys know someone who's having appliance troubles, please send them the link to this video or a link to my channel where I have tons of other videos showing how to fix pretty common issues with appliances, sometimes for free or as little cost as possible. It sure beats having a repairman come out and spending several hundred for them to fix it when it could be something so simple. If this helped you get your freezer working again, hit that like button and drop a comment below. Let me know which fix worked for you. Really helps other people with the same problem. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. We'll get this out to more folks who need to save some time and money. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.